How about one more round of applause for Bill Frisell? Bill, we have a lot of students here, a lot of people that are aspiring to be artists and looking for opportunities. So a lot of times we start these out by saying, how did you begin? Because everybody has a similar story. You know, I was interested in music, or my family played, and then there seems to be a point where the story veers left or right, and opportunity comes your way. So can we talk about how you got interested in music? And
Wow. Can you hear me? I mean, really, for almost as long as I can remember, it was, I mean, my parents didn't really play a little bit. It was sort of around the house. We had a record player, but just for as long as I can remember, music was the place. It's like a refuge, or it was where things just made sense, where anything was possible and people got along, and whatever came into your imagination it was just the coolest place to be. So, you know, I mean, from when I was really, really young, I was even, you know, I've said this story a million times, watching our family bought a TV. This is in the mid-'50s. And I'd watch the Mickey Mouse Club on TV every afternoon. And at the end of the show, the guy named Jimmy. So there's probably nobody in here that is this old. Is there? Maybe one or two. All right. Yeah, I'm talking about television in the 50s. But Jimmy was the leader of the Mouseketeers. Like, all the kids would have those hats with the mouse ears, and then they'd have all these little activities they do, and at the end of the show they'd all gather around, and he'd take his guitar that had a picture of Mickey Mouse on it, and they'd all sing a song together. And I thought, wow, that is like the coolest. First, I just loved the way the guitar looked, and then checking out what was happening. You know, everybody it got everybody together sort of in this really cool way. And around that time I made a guitar out of a piece of cardboard, and I put rubber bands on it and pretended, I mean, I was like 4 or 5 years old, and pretended like I was playing the guitar. And then you'd see, you know, there's like cowboys on TV that played guitars, and eventually that led to, I lived in Colorado, but would be fantasizing about surfing, and there was surf music, which was like the coolest thing. The Ventures and the Beach Boys, and the first album I bought was a Beach Boys album. Not an album, it was a 45 little Deuce Coupe. So it was like hot rods and rocket ships, and just, you know, your imagination was going wild. And then by the time the Beatles came around, I was 12, 13 years old, and then it was just, I didn't want to do anything else but play the guitar. So was that sort of answer the question?
yeah, but in your bio it says that you learned to play clarinet.
Oh yeah, that was I was in the 4th grade. They come around and say, does anybody want to play an instrument? And my father said, well, clarinet is a good instrument. Why don't you play that? So I just sort of went along with the program, and but I took to it. So I mean, I did well at it, but I never felt like my heart wasn't completely into it. But I pushed the right buttons. It was like looking at I learned to read music. I had a really great, I was so lucky at the very beginning to have these really great teachers that encouraged me. And I played in this, like a marching band outside of school, and had all these experiences with that at the time, you know, it was, oh God, I have to put this horrible scratchy uniform on, and I played at the stock show parade in Denver at 20 below zero, and all this stuff that, looking back, I'm thankful for now. but that gave me, this sort of the basic learning how to tap my foot and read notes, and with the clarinet it was more like, my mother would say, Billy, you practice a half hour a day or you can't go out and play or something. So I would do that, but a few years after that's where the guitar really, no one had to tell me to practice the guitar. I just went to it.
So you started off with this paper guitar, and then who gave you a real guitar?
Well, then quite a few years later, I guess, I'm a young teenager, and I got a really cheap acoustic guitar. It also seemed like everybody had, like my friends across the street, there would be guitars sort of sitting around that I'd mess around with. And eventually I got a really cheap acoustic guitar for Christmas one year, and then soon after that I saved up my money. I got a paper route delivering newspapers and bought an electric guitar, and that was like 1965 or something like that. And that feels like, okay, now this is for real, because as soon as you owned an electric guitar, you were automatically in a band. You didn't even have to play. If you had it, that's all you needed. And so my friend down the street got one, and within a couple weeks, we learned 3 songs and we played at a party, and that's all I've done since. I haven't figured out what else to do with myself. That's all I've been doing.
But what's interesting with you, it's like I see every time I see you play, it seems like the people you're playing with are like your closest friends. And it was probably like that when you started playing with your first band.
And it's your friends, and it's, really the world of music for me has been, there's the music itself, but there's the community of musicians that it's just gotten me through all kinds of, it's just, there's something happening with music that kind of sets things straight. It's growing up, at Denver, you don't think of that as it's not like here we are in New York, but there was a community of musicians that supported me, from when I was really young. I could go hang out in clubs and they'd invite me up to play or just encourage me. And
was there anybody that you remember from that time that was of significance that we'd know?
Well, when I was in oh boy, there's so many. Like I said, these teachers I had, the school teachers were great. Like in high school, my high school band director, I was playing clarinet in the concert band, and there was a talent show that year. I think it was my first year or second year in high school. I can't remember, first or second year. And he knew that I played guitar, and there was these girls were doing this dance routine, and they were using Wes Montgomery's Bumpin' on Sunset, that song. They were playing the record and then do this dance thing. And the director said, this is kind of lame that they're just doing it to the record. Do you think you could learn this song? And I didn't even know who, at that point I hadn't even heard of Wes Montgomery. So he gave me this record, and I went home, and luckily it wasn't a Aerogen or some, it was a tune that I could, it was kind of a link between, I'd been playing really, by that time it was more whatever I was into, blues, but it was that song kind of was just I could, and then I went, at that also you could at Walgreens or Woolworths they had tons of these. It was like Riverside and Blue Note and cutout records, and I went over there and you could, oh, there's a Wes Montgomery record, and it happened to be his first trio record that was, so I got that for 79 cents and went home and listened to that, and it just opened the floodgates to, so that teacher just asking me to learn that one song was a big, and then from there I think I gotta find somebody that can, because this music just seemed like such a mystery, like what is going on with this, So I was really lucky to find there's a musician in Denver. Still, I'm gonna actually do a gig with him in March. Dale Bruning. He's originally from Philadelphia, and he had moved out to Colorado, and he became sort of I don't know. He just opened. I probably wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't met him. He introduced me to Jim Hall and opened up all that music to me.
And he has a career in Denver?
Yeah. He's just kind of, he comes here occasionally, and he's one of those guys, like, if he had stayed on the East Coast, you'd be hearing more about him.
Kind of reminds me of somebody like Dennis Sandoli. You know who
He
that was?
studied with Dennis Sandoli.
Wow.
He was, Dennis Sandoli in Philadelphia was his main guy, who, yeah, totally, yeah. Nice. See, it's all, that's the thing too about music. It's like, it's so, you're just one step away from,
So from there, did that experience with Dale lead you to move to Boston and Berkeley?
Yeah. Then I got out of high school, and but by that time my parents had, the summer after my last year in high school, my parents moved to New Jersey, and so that was my first summer of '69 coming to New York. And, that was the first time I went to the Village Vanguard and just started to hear all that music. I'd come around here and hang, and then I went back to Colorado. But 1969 was the year that I
Who did you hear play in the Vanguard?
Oh, man. Well, the first one was, I heard Gary Burton was the first thing I heard there. I heard Mingus, I heard Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, Roland Kirk, Freddie Hubbard, Charlie Rouse, Lee Konitz, Hank Jones, Tony Williams.
But this is the first time.
Chicoria.
I mean, you're coming from Colorado. It's like I came from Iowa, and it's like you can't imagine that these people really existed in person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I heard some of those people, they would come through Denver too. I heard Bill Evans and Jim Hall in Denver back then. They'd come and play in little bars,
You hear them play together?
No,
Oh.
no. But I got to meet Bill Evans. That was another revelation, major. Like you said, that was incredible. That I always thought at that point, like, I was in college at that point, and I was under the impression that if you worked really hard and you practiced really hard and, worked real hard at your music, you'd get to this point where it would just be like this, you'd get really good, and it would be this kind of wonderful, ecstatic thing would be happening, I just thought that's why you work and you get really good, and it's just going to be this, eventually it's going to be just great, So I go, Bill Evans was playing at this place called the Senate Lounge, just a little dump bar downtown Denver. And I was going there with my friends every night, the whole week. We'd go every night, every set. and we're having these just religious experiences. Just, oh my God, I can't believe what he's playing. Oh, every tune was blowing our minds, and I'm thinking, just think, if we keep practicing, someday maybe it's going to be just like that. It's going to be so wonderful, And so one night, after the gig, oh man, we couldn't believe what the music was. It was just, transcendent, awesome, amazing. And I had a Volkswagen car, and with all my friends, we're piled in there. But we go out on the street, and downtown Denver, like 1 a.m, and there's nobody on the street, just completely, not a soul around, except Bill Evans is standing out in the middle of the street, just lost. He lost his ride to the hotel. So we go up to, excuse me, Mr. Evans, hello, we've been listening to you all week, and we just can't believe how wonderful the music was, it's just, oh, Mr. Evans, oh my God, And he was like, what? He was like, God, I haven't been able to play, I feel terrible, I just can't get anything happening, he was completely bummed out, I'm thinking, what? But I couldn't believe it. And then I realized, oh shit. It was like this light. I said, uh-oh. This is what we're in for. I mean, this is, for the rest of our lives, that's what it's going to be like. You can never figure it out, And it was sort of bummed me out for a second, but then I realized, wait, I guess I would just got to figure out a way to. The deal is you just got to stay in it, and just you're never gonna. Every morning you wake up and it's like this thing is out in front of you. It's as big as it ever was. It's as big as it was when I was watching the Mickey Mouse Club. It's still. I'm never gonna get to the end of it, so you have to get comfortable. That's what keeps you going, but you have to be comfortable with this massive thing that you're never going to figure out, sitting and just looking at you, So, and then I got to give him a ride home to his apartment. That was all. My foot was shaking on I couldn't believe it. This Bill Evans sitting there, that was amazing.
Did he have car talk, or was he just quiet?
No, he was cool. He was just talking. Yeah, why don't you come by again? And I couldn't. He was just like a regular. That was the other thing. I meet some of these guys that were. He was like a god, to me. Like, and then you meet him, and it's like he was a person too. That kind of blew my mind. And
that's a great story. So let's talk about when did you feel like same concept. When did you feel like you were starting to get a handle on music?
I don't have any kind of handle on music. I mean, I come and I do that. Every once in a while I get cornered into some kind of situation like this, or a college thing. I'm supposed to do a master class. What? I don't know. I don't have a handle on it. I feel like we're all in the same. Whenever I do those master classes thing, I feel so. It doesn't feel quite right to me. It's like I don't. I mean, now, the only thing I've got is that I'm 60 years old, and I just haven't. I don't know. I've been trying to do it for a while, but it's like we're all in the same boat somehow,
You did a master class for me at the Blue Note a few years ago on a Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
And the first thing you said was, any questions in the audience? Nobody had any questions. He goes, okay, thank you. Have a good day. And you were good.
Yeah, that's... I'm as you can, I guess I've been sort of talking now, but I never. It's hard for me to generate to put it out there, you know, like doing a formal sort of a lecture thing or something. It's easier to talk to back and forth. So.
Well, let me ask you, when you were studying with various people at, say, Berkeley, and they said, well, we want you to play this. This is your assignment. When did you, was there ever a point where you said, well, yes, I can do this, but how about this? You know, you start to expand on those lessons.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with music, too, that's always been, I realize even before that, it's easy looking back, thinking of these moments when, you know, at Berkeley they would say, I really took it seriously what they said, you know, learn this and learn that, and this is right and this is wrong. But I would always, you know, and they have these notes called avoid notes, like you cannot play this note on this. And so I'd learn what they were, but then I would say, well, why not? You know, what harm does it do? Why don't I see what that note sounds like? So, I mean, that's a good way to learn, you know, not just throw everything out, but check out what they're saying and then check out why those notes sound bad, and maybe they might sound good. But then I started thinking back, like even what I was saying in music, how you can it's like this world where you can do things that you wouldn't normally do, and like trying to think of an example of something really outrageous that I could do right now that I wouldn't really do, but if in the midst of the music I can do it and nobody gets hurt, or you know, like when I was in high school playing in the concert band, the whole clarinet section, we would do stuff like we'd, you know, play our music upside down, or we'd put our instruments backwards, and mischief, you know, we'd sort of be messing with the music. We even got to got the band director in tears one time. He was so frustrated with us, you know, but pulling these stunts, you know, but then looking back, it was just this way of, it was like improvising in a weird way, you know, and I always had, you know, this sort of fantasy about having it's kind of what I do with my bands in a way, you know, it's like you put yourself in this context of whatever the music is, and then you can just fly around in it or do whatever you want in it.
Well, I was just thinking it was probably the most dangerous musical experience for you was probably in marching band, because you could wrong left turn and you get a trombone in your face.
Yeah, marching band. Oh. And the stock show parade, the stuff that you had to walk through, man, it was incredible.
So, you know, reading your bio, it says that they call you the Clark Kent of music, of mild-mannered. When did that first pop? I guess that comes with a little, like getting some recognizability with what you do and your sound and the whole variety of people you've played with. And they say, you know, you're mild-mannered and wearing your disguise.
I don't know what. Yeah, the stuff. That's weird to me too. There's all this external noise of analysis or people talking about what you do, and it sort of takes on this. I mean, I'm so lucky that I've gotten this kind of attention. You know, I don't want to, but it's sort of, I don't really want to give it too much. I'm the only one that really knows what, you know, when I'm in the midst of trying to play, I'm the only one that knows what I'm trying to do, and I'm the only one that knows how successful I'm being at it. And and I don't have a name for what I do. You know, there's all these. It gets to be kind of a tiresome after a while. Although I shouldn't be complaining because I'm sorry.
Stop complaining already. Stop.
No, I mean, no, I should be thankful that people are calling it this or that and have some sort of interest in it. I know that.
Well, let me ask you some pointed questions. So, your first ECM record, you got that because Pat Metheny couldn't make a date. So,
See, there it gets all twisted around.
okay.
No, I think that has something to do with how I got, how Paul Motion met me.
Well, it says
But it
here,
wasn't because he.
this is on the website here. It says Frisell's major break came when guitarist Pat Metheny was unable to make a recording session, and recommended Frisell to Paul Motion for the recording Psalm.
Well, it's kind of a combination of a few things. Pat recommended me to Paul, but it wasn't because he missed a recording or he couldn't do it. It was just Paul was looking for a guitar player, and I knew Pat from Boston. But I had made an ECM record 3-4 years before that, actually. I didn't make too much of an impression back then, but no, I had actually met right after I left Boston. Another really important teacher for me was Mike Gibbs, a Ranger composer, and I played in his band in school, and then I lived in Europe for a little while, and he had a tour in England, and I knew the music, so he called me to do this tour with. There was a lot of guys that Kenny Wheeler and Charlie Mariano, and Eberhard Weber was playing bass on that band, and so from that tour, Eberhard asked me to play on one of his records, which was on ECM, and that was in 1978. So, but anyway, but Pat was, I knew Pat from when I was in school, and he was just forever has been really, well, particularly, I mean, back then nobody had ever heard my name, or he would always kind of mention my name to people and help me so much. He would come to gigs,
Was Pat teaching in Boston at the time, or was he a student?
He was, I think he was, when I got there, he was, wasn't, I think he had been teaching there a little bit, and by that time he was playing in Gary Burton's band and just in town, mainly playing with Gary, and he was doing gigs with, I remember the first gig he did with Jaco Pastorius and Bob Moses, in a little he would draw up these little flyers with a magic marker, and from Florida, Jaco Pastorius, who's Jaco, it was incredible stuff that those guys were playing. And then I remember seeing the first gig with the Pat Metheny band when he hooked up with Lyle Mays and stuff like that, and so he was, things were really taking off for him.
So did you take anything from Pat musically?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was right when I'm in 1975 moving to Boston, and I heard him. There were so many things I was thinking about before I heard him. Like trying to think of ways to, I don't know if it's getting too nerdy or something, but just the thing, where the music was going and what the guitar, I had studied with Jim Hall. I'd spent quite a bit of time thinking about music of the 50s and 60s and the 40s, and like bebop music, and for me the guitar at that point was Jim Hall was sort of the I'm way oversimplifying it, but say it's like it almost. I was also listening to John McLaughlin too, but I was trying to figure out what to do with it. I was listening. I would listen to Bill Evans and then Paul Bley, and I'm thinking, well, how could I do things that Paul? I kind of had some sense of Bill Evans maybe, or like Jim for me had a way of sort of translating some of that language onto the guitar, and I'm thinking, man, I want to what about Paul Bley and Cecil Taylor and Ornette, and how can I get that stuff to work on the guitar? And that's where my mind was at right at that moment. And then I go to this little club, and there's Pat, and he was playing Ornette tunes, and he was playing Paul Bley tunes, and I was like, man, that's what I wanted to do. He stole all my shit. No. No. It was like and he had already been he was doing that, So in a way it was encouraging, but then it was also like, wow, I gotta figure something else out or something, or no. I mean, I didn't want to copy him either, so I don't know if that makes any sense. But.
Well, a sideline here. I was playing a gig a couple years ago, and this woman comes up to me afterwards. It was like somebody's wedding or Christmas party or something, and she says, "Are you Dave Schroeder from NYU?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "You didn't accept my son into your program. He's a guitarist." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he says, "Well, what did your son play?" She says, "Well, he wanted to come to NYU to study avant-garde guitar." And I said, what is avant-garde guitar? And she said, "Well, whatever it is, they teach it at Berkeley. That's where he's going."
Wow. Oh, man.
So, maybe.
Well, they didn't teach. No, they did too. Yeah. No, no. I don't know.
So I know when I heard Pat's records first, you heard the all his effects on the guitar, like chorus and whatever, and then Lyle with all the keyboard synth. And I know that when did you start using all the pedals and the volume pedals and such? Was that affected through Pat?
I mean, it was maybe, I don't even know. I wasn't. Somewhere back then in the 70s, I'd hear usually all that stuff comes from hearing something in my head. Like a lot of the music I wasn't listening to guitar that almost immediately, as soon as that moment I told you I heard Wes Montgomery, and then it was like entering into that world, it suddenly, well, wait a minute, the guitar is just one little piece of this whole thing. And so I started really listening to piano players and saxophone players and trumpet players, and hearing all those kind of sounds in my head and trying to imitate that stuff on the guitar. I mean, because that's where the music, it wasn't just, I mean, there's incredible guitar players, but everybody was taking from everybody else. I mean, one instrument would do what another instrument did, and so, and thinking of it sort of as an orchestral, it's just a tool that I could try to get at these things that were in my imagination. So whatever these pedals I would get, it usually came from like even a distortion that, sometimes I talk about Jimi Hendrix, or I think about like rock and roll guitar, that isn't what got me to get a distortion. I mean, I remember sort of a moment like I was hearing Freddie Hubbard. I was hearing the sound of a trumpet, like this sort of buzzing, long, sustained note that, and then I heard Carlos Santana. It was like sort of like hearing this little momentary sound. Like, wait a minute, that sounds exactly like right. If you listen right in the middle of one of Santana's sustained, distorted guitar notes, it actually sounds like a trumpet. And I thought, oh wait, maybe I could get kind of a trumpet thing with that. So I bought a little distortion box, but so it's like in my head I was hearing Santana or I was hearing Jimi Hendrix, but I was actually thinking about a trumpet, and then, or I'd get a delay pedal because I was jealous of a piano player can put their foot, they can just hold their hand down and the notes ring out, or they can put their foot down on the sustain pedal and the stuff just ring, and I wanted to be able to play a chord and have the notes ring and then play some other notes on top. So then I would buy a delay pedal to try to simulate that kind of stuff. So most of of course there's the aspect of just total wild experimenting, like I wonder what this sounds like or that. But most of it comes from first sort of some frustration of having something in my imagination, and then I would get some device to try to get as close as I could get to it.
Was there ever a point, like when you were playing it with Gibbs, that you said, I'm going to cop Wes Montgomery on this gig? I want to be this person.
That happens a lot. I mean, while I'm playing, I'm always trying to imitate somebody, whether it's another guitar or another instrument or the sound of a voice. I mean, a lot of times when I'm playing whatever song it is, I'm hearing the sound of a singer that I associate with a song in my head or something. I don't know if that's what you were talking about,
Yeah.
but and then the other thing is I never can get remotely close to it. It's like this sort of grasping out into the, it's always like further than what I can actually get. So I'm just sort of just getting as close as I can get.
What about the imagery that you tried to recreate with music for, like your Buster Keaton records?
Well, that was kind of a wild. That was the first time I ever tried to write music for film. I'd never. Maybe some of my music had been used somewhere, pre-existing music, but that was the first time I ever looked at an image and thought, actually started from scratch and tried to put sound to it. And so it was like completely like a kindergarten or even preschool throwing stuff around just to see what would happen. I had no idea what I was doing. It was really like just throwing paint at the canvas and praying it would stick somehow. But so it was kind of a perfect way for me to enter into that, because there weren't any, there had been, I don't know of any definitive soundtrack for, he didn't really control the sound like Charlie Chaplin did or something. It was sort of, I felt like, okay, well, it's kind of an open, it's been left open. So I felt like it was okay to enter into there and try to do something, and that there's no dialogue, or it was just this kind of blank slate that I could just mess around with. It was really a great way for me to give it a try, and again, I don't know how.
But did that lead to the other opportunities you had for film score, like Finding Forrester and
I
Gary
guess
Larson?
well, it just then it was amazing that the Gary Larson thing came not too long after that. Having done the Buster Keaton thing gave me enough confidence to try that. And again, there was no dialogue. There was no. It was all music, but it was more. That had to be more specific. I worked more with him. I had more instruction from him about what kind of mood or this or that. But I would have been able to do that if I hadn't first done the Buster Keaton thing. And then not too long after that, there was an Italian film where there was dialogue, but I didn't know what they were talking about. But it was sort of just one thing. But I still I haven't had that much experience with film. I like doing it because it kind of corners me. It pushes me into places actually slightly uncomfortable. There's the limitations of it that somehow force me into writing something that I wouldn't think of just if I was left on my own.
So I want to talk now, because I know that you were just with Joe Lovano. Can we talk about your trio with Paul Motion and how that formed? And interesting concept, no bass player. So you were really on the hook for a lot of material.
Yeah, well, that was it's probably the longest relationship I've ever had with almost anybody, not just musically, but just 30 years we played together. So and that was you mentioned the thing with Pat recommended me to Paul, and then 1981 I went over to Paul's house to play for the first time, and just was playing with him ever since then. Not long after that, Joe came. I had met Joe a couple years before, like in Boston. He was by the time I got to Boston, Joe was already. He was like kind of a legend around. He'd been to Boston, but he was playing with Woody Herman, and he's on the road, and like I'd be playing in some club, and if Woody Herman's band was anywhere close, Joe would kind of storm into town, and you'd be playing somewhere, and suddenly Joe would be on the bandstand just blowing everybody off the stage, and then he would leave, and says, "Wow, that was Joe Lovano." This is incredible, And so I'd kind of met him a couple times, but then soon after I started playing with Paul, going over to Paul's house to rehearse, Joe came, and then started out as a quintet for a little while, and then it was like 83 or something like that. We started playing as a trio.
Now let me ask you a question. The story that I heard was that Ed Schuler was playing bass during a set, and one of his strings broke, and he stopped playing.
I don't know if his string broke or he passed out. No, or no, I'm sorry. No, something happened just where we were in the middle of a gig, and I mean I know it was in Paul's mind, because even there we had rehearsed at his house a couple times, trio. I knew he was sort of thinking about that, but there was a moment where I remember I think it was in Hamburg. I can almost picture the stage and the whole. Everybody stopped, and it was just me and Joe for this sort of long section of the music, and it was like, wow, it's kind of working, And I think that's what gave Paul the confidence to let's just really try this. And then so soon after that, we had a tour set up, and we just went for it. And
What did Ed say at that point? like
I don't remember. No, but and it wasn't like. Also, we kept doing the quintet as well. Like we do these trio things, and then we do the quintet. Sort of alternated back and forth for a while, and
but that group was so special because I mean I don't know if anybody could emulate I mean or remove any one of those elements and it would be the same because of your individual characters.
yeah, I mean, for me, it was just I don't even know what to say about it. It's just the most important.
Did it take a while for you to find your role in that band?
Um, no, I remember at the beginning. I think it. Well, it always. That's the thing about with Paul. There wasn't one second that we ever played that I ever felt like there was any playing it safe, or it was every single time we played, every moment it felt like I didn't know what was going to happen. It just felt brand new and like we were finding it for the first time every single time. But there definitely was, at the beginning, I think there was this period of getting accustomed to that and comfortable and confident that there is this space in there that, I remember at the very beginning with that band, I can remember trying to, I got to fill in that, or I got to do, I felt like I had to put something in those places or something, and maybe we all were, I don't know. It took a while to like, wait a minute, you don't have to always have some thing banging around down there, pounding away or something. It's.
And how much direction did Paul give?
I mean, for me, it was never any verbal. It's just in the playing with him was all you needed to. It all came from the music itself. It was a huge amount of direction. Like playing with him, whether he was playing or not, if he was there, the energy was so strong that it was causing things to happen. I mean, I had things where he'd just have me play by myself. He wouldn't play. I would just play by myself, and I'd be playing stuff like, wow, how did I do that? Things would be happening that I mistakenly thought I was doing myself, and then if I tried to do it when he wasn't there, it was like it wasn't there anymore. It's so whether he was actually making a sound or it was just his presence was so strong.
I'd like to open it up if anybody has a few short questions today. Oh, right.
Did you have any contact with Tal Farlow?
Oh, I wish. I got a message that I couldn't believe it, but somebody told me that he had heard something that I played, and but I never met him. No, that's another one of the ones there. But yeah, I never met him.
Did you study with Johnny Smith?
Yeah, I had a few. Wow, I can't believe I got, and that was so, another thing that I wish I knew then what I knew now type thing. But I was going to college in Colorado, and I was deep into Jim Hall, and he was living in Colorado and came to teach a class at the college, like a guitar class. Like, boy, talk about a gracious person, it was just sort of open to anybody that wanted to take the class. So I signed up, and there was I don't know, maybe 10 kids in the class, and each week as it went by, there'd be less kids, and it ended up just me, and they just weren't interested, and it just ended up me and Johnny Smith, and so I sort of had this private thing with him, and that, I guess that was for a couple semesters, and again, he was so, I've been so lucky with these people sort of encouraging me, he was just really said, go ahead and do it, he was really, but I have to confess that, at that time I didn't realize what I wish I had known, and wish I could have asked him this or asked him that. And, I wanted to be like some hipster bebop something or other. I don't know what it was I was thinking. And, it seemed sort of slightly corny, old. I wanted to be like this super modern thing, and I was already too. Anyway, I wish I could go back and check that out again.
Do we have one more question? Okay, 2 more questions, right here.
Hi, I'm from Toronto, which is kind of a guitar town, and my friends would kill me if I didn't ask you about either Ed Bickert or Sonny Greenwich.
I've never met them, but those are a couple of those guys. Master, amazing.
Another just quick question then would be, what do you think of the guys who are sort of, because your influence is definitely present in guitarists of the generations younger than you, and I was wondering what you would think of the playing of some of the people who are just a little bit younger than you, Ben Monder, or sort of that generation who have kind of sort of carried what you started a little bit further. Not further,
I mean, I don't even know myself that what I don't. I'm really not sure. Like, I hear Ben Monder, and it's like, oh my God, what is he? No, he's an influence on me. I mean, that thing. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, Timo.
Sorry.
Did you ever take a conscious decision regarding your own voice? You know what I'm saying? Or is it just something you never thought about and it just came along?
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, I don't know if I had, I feel like that's something that was brought to my attention from the outside more. I mean, it was always something that I thought about, and it's important to me. Like, every musician, all my heroes, they're all recognizable as individual. When you hear Monk play the piano, that's that. Or you hear Sonny Rollins, or you hear that for me, that was part of the deal, part of the thing that you strive for. But I never knew I didn't know how you do it. All I was trying to do was, I think it comes in a way from whatever our limitations are with it. Like, I've said this story a lot of times. If anybody's ever seen me try to talk before, it's in this kind of situation. There's a story about Miles Davis listening to Dizzy Gillespie when he was young and really into Dizzy Gillespie or something, but he wasn't hearing it up that high, or he couldn't get it up there or something, and so he went for something else. And I'm thinking, wow, what a drag it would have been if, I don't think of Miles as having limitations, but it was, maybe that's what, the fact that he couldn't play exactly like Dizzy Gillespie caused him to play like Miles Davis. So, and it would have been a drag if he had played exactly like Dizzy Gillespie, because then we wouldn't have Miles Davis. So it seems like so much of what I play is just it's an approximation of wishing I could play like, I just do the best I can with what I got, and then that ends up being what I sound like, or what. And I think we all have our own voice, and I think a lot of it might come from that, just you have to face up to the stuff that you can't do, and then just try to make something with what you got. So,
You know what? As we close today, I always ask our artists if you have any words of wisdom that you can give for all the students and the artists that are trying to pursue the same path or a creative career. Any thoughts?
Well, just if you want to play music and you love music, that's all you need to know. I think it just stick with them. For me, anything that's the other thing. It didn't take long to figure out if I ever did anything for some reason other than the music itself, something messed up would happen, whether it was money or this. I mean, I know we have to eat and we have to do all that, but just if you love it, that's all. And you just stay with it, and the music always has told me what to do somehow. It's there and you go into it, and there's no question about what you have to, you know what you have to do next. You don't need any lessons or anything. You just go into the music and it'll tell you what to do. And as long as you stay in that, I never really aggressively went after hustling this or, I just sort of tried to stay in the music, and then things sort of come up. I know I'm just ridiculously lucky. I know that too. I've got a lot of that going on. Good luck. But somehow I really believe if you just stay with if you just love it so much, then it's going to be cool somehow.
Well, I'm sure all of us here today are thankful that you've been so lucky, because you've been such a great part of music for my listening and everybody in this room. So thank you so much. How about a round of applause? Bill Frisell.